Okay, welcome back, everyone. So today we'll look at the second point of mind training, which is train in compassion. So, what is compassion? Does anyone want to give me a definition? It's actually one of these words that we kind of throw around and then um, sometimes seems like we don't really know what we're talking about. I think I gave a quick definition yesterday, but please, Jerry.
It's like a sense of care or nurturing for others, and that's my guess.
Yeah, that's very close to the standard definition. There's one element that's missing that sort of narrows it down into compassion. Does anyone have a little something to add? So what Jerry said is totally correct. It's just that compassion, at least in the Eastern traditions, is generally used in relation to someone's suffering. So caring about someone who's having a good day isn't considered compassion. It's not obviously opposed to it, but the compassion would be during someone having a hard time. So my definition, our working definition, can be caring about the suffering of others. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So compassion is a natural instinct. And this is an important thing to remember as we kind of embark on this journey. So when someone stubs their toe, we flinch. It's built into our system to care about that. We all have mirror neurons, although some people have more and some people have fewer, interestingly enough. Um, and we're essentially social creatures. I mean, that's what's made humans do as well as we have in the world. Maybe not everything we do is so great, but that's how we have thrived as a species, is working together actually and caring about each other. That's sort of what we're best at. However, as we talked about a little bit yesterday, we haven't necessarily been taught to turn toward difficulty, to turn toward pain. Instead, we might think that pain, our own pain, is wrong, or maybe it's overwhelming, and we may avoid it, or we may pretend that it's not there. The cost of doing this is turning away from actually quite a lot of life, especially places where we might be of benefit to ourselves and to other people. Mark Nepo writes this. He says, "We unknowingly slip something on, some added layer of protection that keeps us from feeling the world. And often that thin covering is the beginning of a loneliness, which, if not put down, diminishes our chances of joy." Sharon Salzberg teaches the following. She says, "Throughout our lives, we long to love and feel connected. Instead, we often contract, fear intimacy, and suffer a bewildering sense of separation. We crave love, and yet we are lonely." So the good news is that we can train to turn toward areas of difficulty. And this is exactly the point of the Lojong teachings. Point 2 is divided into two sections. Slogans 2 through 6 are what's called wisdom teachings, designed to help us to sort of start the journey. And then slogans 7 through 10 describe Tonglen meditation and how to train with the slogans. So if you're familiar with Tibetan Buddhism at all, which you don't have to be, you'll have heard the term emptiness. And this is the foundation of the wisdom teaches presented in the first section of point 2. So we're going to talk about it today. The important thing here, and depending how you've been introduced to emptiness, it could sound like really out there. Okay, so the important thing, and at least the way I'm going to talk about it here, is that we're discussing something comprehensible. We're discussing something scientific about how we experience the world. So it's not esoteric, and yeah, it's understandable, at least this angle on it is. We could do a whole course on that, and maybe we should sometime because it's fun. But today we'll just do a couple minutes lenses in for the emptiness course. So let's look at it closely. Slogan 2 is regard all dharmas as dreams. So this concept causes real confusion. So I really want to talk about it. It's at the heart of a lot of the misconceptions, I believe, about Buddhism and about yoga, about the understanding. So dharmas here refers to things. And the word dharma has so many translations. It depends how it's used in the sentence and what the context is. But here it means things. So see all things as dreamlike is what slogan 2 is saying. So why would things be dream-like? It's not because your life isn't real. And it's not because life doesn't matter. It's nothing like that, although that's how it tends to get used or understood. So those kinds of ideas are called nihilism, and they're a real source of suffering, actually, for people. So we're not going to go there. So instead, let's think about, scientifically, how we perceive the world. Our eyes take in light waves and send the information along the optic nerve to our visual cortex in our brain, where an image is created and experienced. Our ears take in sound waves. They send the information along the auditory nerve to the auditory cortex of the brain, where sounds are created and experienced. So it's already, I don't think we think about this, but like what we hear and what we see, that happens in our brain, not in the outside world. So already that's like something to kind of think about. Different kinds of receptors in our skin, I think there's 8 kinds, receive information about temperature, pressure, friction, pain, stretch, and they send signals to the sensory cortex of the brain, where they're processed and understood, and that creates our knowing about how the world feels. So how the world feels happens in our brain. I'm not saying there's nothing out there, but I'm saying this is how we experience it. Also, we don't have access to all the information out there. For example, a dog can smell things that we can't smell, and dogs can hear things that we can't hear. Spiders and many insects can see UV light, and snakes can see infrared light. Fun facts for you. But it just tells you, we're taking in what our eyes and ears are able to take in just by how we're built. Plus, what enters our consciousness is by necessity selective. So otherwise we'd be overwhelmed. We receive about 11 million bits of information every second, and our consciousness can process between 40 and 50 bits. So we literally are limited by how our consciousness works to 40 or 50 bits out of 11 million every second. So we're taking into consciousness the information that we find salient, is the word they use in neuroscience, which means relevant. So our consciousness pulls out the information that feels relevant, and that's what we experience, and the rest we just let go. And we're more likely to find something salient that's either emotionally charged or something we're afraid of, just, for safety, of the organism. So this all makes the world a little bit dreamlike because our information about the world is both partial and selective, and it's based on how we're built. And then it gets, I think, even more interesting, is that we're constantly interpreting this subset of information that we're actually taking in. And how do we do it? It's based on what we've experienced in the past and how we've been trained to perceive, meaning what our parents and our teachers and our culture have told us is what's going on. And that's why each of you has an entirely different take on what I'm saying right now, right? Like guaranteed. I can have one, I think you're all getting the same thing, right? Because this is what I mean to say, but actually you're taking it in through how you take in information, and you're going to totally forget, one sentence, and another sentence is going to mean a lot. And maybe it means something different to you than what I meant. And anyway, so this is going on all the time. I mean, maybe we haven't gone too far in this, but think about an emotionally charged conversation with somebody. Everyone's taking in different information and processing it differently. Plus, on top of that, our memories are terribly inaccurate. And if you're not familiar with this, I recommend Googling it and checking out some of these studies they do with juries, because it's really humbling to see just how crazy our memories are. So if we all had a conversation together last week, or even last year, but even last week, forget about it. First of all, each of us has a different memory of it. Second of all, our own memories are changing all the time. So even if we were to have had the same memory at the same time, which we didn't, our memories have diverged so much from our own memories, how they were. It's like entirely impossible that we're going to have the same memory of something as time goes forward. So here's the question, given all that: what's really happening in the world now, and what really happened last week? There's no way to know. There's literally no way to know. So in that way, the world is very dreamlike. So how is this useful? This whole breaking down of all that, like, where is this going? How does this help us to approach compassion? Because that's the topic at hand, and this is the intro to that. So if we start paying attention, and we learn that our perceptions can be particularly inaccurate in certain kinds of situations. Like, so we can look, also important to look at what other people are perceiving and take their points of view into account. I think that can be really helpful. Instead of just thinking I remember correctly, it can be very helpful to say, what do you remember to someone about something, and think, I wonder if that's right or I'm right, or if it's somewhere in the middle. If we acknowledge that we may not always be right, that can be helpful. And to acknowledge that other people think they're right, but they may not be right either. But to understand that, not to tell them that they're wrong, but to say, I always think I'm right, so they are too. And that helps create a lot of understanding when people come together. And what this means is we all need a little kindness, a little patience, and a little understanding sometimes. And, when do you think you might perceive less accurately? When you're triggered, when something's got you, when your buttons have been pushed. So these sort of challenging things, we look back on them and we probably perceived less accurately during those times. So we can have compassion to ourselves for that, and then know that's happening with other people as well. That when they're upset, they're also probably remembering the entire episode completely differently, or, perceiving it differently. And that's why maybe someone feels attacked when you're not actually attacking them, right? Because they're defensive. So everything you say is going to sound the way they expect it to be. And then, so healing relationships going forward, we want to realize this. And this can help with compassion. Questions on that? I mean, that's the briefest coverage of emptiness that's ever happened, I would guess. We've got a bunch of slogans today, but so does anyone want to talk about any of that before I keep going? Okay, just know you can, yeah, Jerry.
I know I'm new, but I find this stuff fascinating. One thing I was curious about is the idea that something might not be perceived at all, especially in a triggered situation. Disassociation and things like that. Is that factored into here as well?
Sure, but it doesn't even have to be massive. Like I was telling Angela before we started, I took my reactive puppy to the vet yesterday, and I was so stressed that because he bit someone, which is why he had to go to the vet to get his rabies, because he hadn't had it. And now he's got a record, and I'm all like worried about him. And And the vet twice told me, don't worry, he'll grow out of it. And the only reason I know is my boyfriend heard it. And he said, the reason he said it twice is he knew you didn't hear it the first time. I didn't hear it the second time.
Wow.
We were standing a couple feet apart. I was so busy watching the dog and making sure nothing happened that I didn't hear someone being kind to me. And
Wow.
that was yesterday. Yeah. Um, so I think this happens all the time. And of
Absolutely.
course, what you're saying, yes, the more sort of traumatic or challenging a situation is, I think that, the more likely we are to perceive incorrectly. Um, and I was stressed yesterday, but not like, we had a muzzle on. I'd given him the anti-anxiety meds. It wasn't like, a full on bad situation. And I still missed it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, so slogan 3 is examine the nature of awareness. So this is something to look to see over time as you practice, to learn about the nature of your own awareness. And this isn't one of these things that, you can get told the nature of your own awareness, but it's more help. That can be like a pointing out, but it's really helpful to actually learn it for yourself and trust it. So your awareness is clear, and it's impartial, right? When you take in information, you take in the stuff you like and the stuff you don't like. I mean, you can like deny things, but basically, your stub your toe, you feel that. Someone gives you a massage, you feel that. Like you feel the things that are good and the things that are bad. Your awareness takes in both. Your awareness knows that which you like and that which you don't like and that which you don't care about. Again, you may be selecting your consciousness. You might not notice things you don't care about so much, but your awareness is even. I'm going to use awareness and consciousness very specific ways. And when you read books, they might choose to reverse them. These are tough words to use in English talking about this stuff. But when I talk about them, awareness is just this larger capacity of knowing, and consciousness is like what you know in the moment. Let's just put it that way. And that's a whole topic. We could do a week on that easily too. But, not right now. So your awareness rejects nothing. Your awareness knows equally whatever is present. And the felt sense of your awareness, this is what's, I think, the most interesting, is of peace and of love. And this is your nature. So don't take my word for this. Please check it out for yourself. Again, over time. And that's one of the things you do in meditation, is kind of see what it feels like to be when we're not too busy processing information, to not notice. It's just the sort of baseline feeling of being. Slogan 4 is self-liberate, even the antidote. This is very Tibetan language. The antidote is emptiness. This idea that all things are dream-like. So to self-liberate emptiness means don't fixate onto it and don't hold on to it. Nagarjuna said that those who believe in emptiness are incurable. And he also said that emptiness is like a poisonous snake. If you pick it up from the wrong end, it will kill you. So if we take emptiness the wrong way, and this happens all the time, we think that nothing matters and we get depressed and disconnected. So it's crucial that we use our understanding of emptiness to see that our love and our understanding have more power in the world. Because of emptiness, everything we think or do has more influence, because it's changing how we take in information and how other people take in information. So this gives more power in the world, not less. It's not like well, then forget it, I'll sit back and let everything happen and not care about it, even though that does happen, which is why this teaching to self-liberate, even the antidote, is here right at the beginning. So remember, if you ever get feeling a little bit disconnected because of the kind of emptiness teachings, and there's all the same stuff in the yoga tradition too with different words, Um, it's just a dance. It's just a show. You know, you'll hear Leela, like the dance of life, like it's a play or something. And that's a first step to other teachings, but it's not the teaching. Just remember that it's not the ultimate teaching. So this is the only world we live in. There isn't another one. This is the one that counts. And that's the important thing to remember with point 4. Slogan 4. Slogan 5 is rest in the openness of mind. So we're kind of going back and forth between the emptiness and the awareness. And you'll notice these are not organized like a spreadsheet or something. These slogans are going to be all over the place. And this is how they're organized and not organized. So slogan 5 is rest in the openness of mind. This encourages us to rest in the nature of our awareness, like we were talking about a couple slogans ago, which is calm and peace and love. So through resting, and this happens in meditation, and then once you get used to it, you can do it the rest of the day too. Sort of resting in this felt sense of spaciousness and peace, that's your nature. Through doing this, we learn to trust that we are naturally good and caring, all of us, and that we can trust ourselves, which is very good news. We may need to adjust our conditioning, how we've been trained, when it's not realistic or helpful, right? We already started talking about that yesterday. When we find that we've been trained to not love ourselves fully, that's a place to work on how we were trained. But that's not our nature. Our nature underneath that is spaciousness and love. So we tweak, and we can do this, right? Because we were trained one way, we can train ourselves differently. So this is great news. We can train ourselves to access our natural sense of love. But the loving is built in, is the teaching. We're all wired for it. We just may need to train to uncover it. And even if you were trained to love yourself and others well, you can train to love more. So I find that these teachings are equally helpful kind of wherever you find yourself on that spectrum of conditioning. So that's good news too. There's always more. Deepening, broadening. Slogan 6 is in life, realize the illusory nature of the world and let go. And so, by the way, I mentioned this yesterday. They have these pithy teachings, and then it's like, you can't ask Atisha what he thought. There's no TED Talk or whatever on it, right? So you read the commentary, and there's all these different commentaries. And this one slogan had such unhelpful commentaries from so many people that I had to go back to really old texts to find anything useful on it. So if you read any books on this, you'll see like really strange commentary for slogan 6. But here's what I think it means from doing a bunch of research. It means to acknowledge the dreamlike quality of our world that we've been talking about, and to know that a certain amount of our personal dramas are totally invented, which is what's implied basically by what we talked about with the emptiness, right? So Mark Twain wrote, I have known many sorrows, most of which never happened. And I think we all, right? We've all done this. So slogan 6 is telling us to relax, be curious, and be open-minded. And really all of these teachings are pointing us there. Relax, get curious, be open-minded. And that's what emptiness sort of points us to. Like if we don't totally know what's going on and we might have remembered wrong, like all we can do is pay attention and see what we can learn from other people, from ourselves, from our environment. So this brings us to the practice section of point 2, which has 4 slogans that introduce Tonglen meditation, working with difficulty, and training with the slogans. So we'll practice Tonglen today so that you get a sense of it. And most of you have probably done it at some point somewhere because it's a very popular practice, actually. But the outline is contained in slogan 7, which is sending and taking should be practiced alternately. These two should ride the breath. And slogan 8 tells us where to start, where we're going to start today. Begin the sequence of sending and taking with yourself. So we're going to practice compassion for ourselves today as the instructions tell us. So slogan 9 is one of these kind of weird ones that's going to take a little explanation, but it explains how the practice works. So slogan 9 is 3 objects, 3 poisons, 3 seeds. This is a very Tibetan teaching, like this kind of language. And I left the language. You'll see if you look through anyone's version of the 59 slogans, they're all different. But I kept the language on all of them that where I thought the way it was expressed made it easier to remember, whether it was because it was cute or pithy. So rather than like Norman Fisher changes them into really accessible language all the time. And I did sometimes what he did, but really I think the language is fun and it makes them easier to sort of remember. So the three objects, 3 poisons, 3 seeds. The 3 poisons, this is a very traditional language, are greed, hatred, and delusion. So what are those? Greed is like craving things we want. So greed sounds like maybe I don't have that or maybe I do, but everyone craves things they want, right? Hatred just means wanting things that we don't want to go away. So my foot's asleep, I don't want it. That's considered hatred. I want it to stop. I have a headache. I want it to stop. That's considered hatred. So it's not like a super strong hatred. It just means not liking. And then delusion is confusion about what's happening. We'll use that working definition of that for this course. You could use it differently in different contexts. So these tendencies to crave, not want, and be confused are our reactivity. And that's what makes us lose the plot and react with agitation, narrow-mindedness, and lack of skill. Something happens, we don't like it, or we really want it and we want more, but then we lose it, or we just don't really know what's going on. Those are the 3 kinds of experiences that get us into trouble. And they happen to all of us. And they don't stop happening, by the way. But the Buddha described reactivity as the source of all of our suffering, actually. So he says, you know, pain's going to happen, but the suffering comes from the reactivity. And if you're interested in that, just did a 12-course Basics of Buddhism that's all on just that. So there's videos on that if you're curious. Okay, so the point of slogan 9 is that everything painful has the potential to bring us joy. Everything painful has the potential to bring us joy. So we come in contact with an object, 3 objects, and one of the poisons may arise because the object we either like, don't like, or don't care about. So those are the 3 objects. And then potentially we have the response of greed, hatred, or delusion to it. So those are the poisons. If we act on the poison, this makes me mad, so I'm going to then shout at you as if I'm right or something. Or maybe we repress the feelings. That reinforces the reactivity because it's acting on it. So it makes your mind say, oh, this must be really important. And that makes the pattern worse, and it makes the underlying fear worse, actually. And then we kind of have these escalating reactivities throughout our lives, and we become, see it in yourself, how you kind of become more and more yourself in some ways over time as you get older. Some of us are old enough to have seen that. Maybe the young folks are old enough to. So that's one way it can go. But if we train with our reactivity, which is what these teachings are all for, these poisons become the seeds for us to befriend ourselves and others. So that's the 3 seeds. And this is our opportunity to transform our world as well, because we talked about through the emptiness, this all affects how we perceive the world. So it's actually incredibly powerful. And then slogan 10, in all activities, train with slogans. So this final slogan for today explains we can use the slogans all day, not just in meditation. And as I said, the reason I've left the language of these slogans in their somewhat original state, they weren't done in English, right? It's all still translations, which is why even the people trying to be traditional will have different slogans. But they might stick in your mind this way, right? And then they might pop into your mind at a useful time once you're familiar with them. And even before I studied this, there were a few I had heard over time, and they would kind of pop into my mind, even though I hadn't studied all of them. And it can just be helpful to kind of reorient you on the spot. So the mind training is a combination of meditation practice and life practice. We practice on the cushion so that our nervous system and our perspective will be more helpful in our daily life, where our actions actually count. Okay, so we'll dive into our first compassion practice, Tonglen for ourselves, unless you have any questions you want to talk about before we meditate. All right, so we'll take a comfortable posture. And when you're ready, we'll close our eyes. So we'll always begin with the body. So bringing your mind into your body, feeling the sensations, locating yourself here in this space, in your chair, on your cushion, in this body. This is particularly helpful grounding as we move through, practices that may or may not feel challenging for you, to be in the body the whole time. So relaxing into your body. We'll allow the breath to settle into a natural rhythm. The belly softens. And there can be a sense of centering ourselves in our body around the breathing. So turning our attention to the breathing as a way to sort of gather the attention here in the body. to the best of your ability. Be easy with any unease that might be present in the mind. Give whatever's there permission to be there. Don't push anything away. So, keeping your breathing relaxed and easy, turn your attention to your heart center. On your natural exhale, imagine kindness for yourself coming from your heart and radiating throughout your body. With each exhale, offer yourself peace and well-being. Offer yourself happiness and ease. Each exhale radiates warmth and care for yourself, and your body begins to fill with this feeling. Now I'd like you to bring to mind a situation or person or memory that you find challenging. I'd like you to drop the storyline. And what I mean by that is to drop everything you know about the event or the person, and then tune in simply to the feelings that remain, the emotional experience. Allow yourself to begin to feel the feelings. Be gentle. Go at your own pace. If the storyline re-emerges, no problem. Just gently put down the story and return to the emotional experience that underlies it. On your natural inhale, imagine breathing into your heart center, your anger or fear, your confusion or grief or loss, your resentment or disappointment, your anxiety or difficulty. Breathe in your illness, your cancer, your chronic pain. On your natural exhale, breathe out spaciousness and ease to yourself. Connect to what this difficulty in your life feels like on the inhale. Let your heart open to hold these feelings. Let the heart be as spacious as you can. Exhale to yourself whatever might open the space further still. Whatever it is you need to stay present with the feelings, whether it's strength or courage or peace or love. We're not trying to cure the pain, rather to heal it by being willing to feel it. We're practicing to open our heart to what is, to overcome our fear of pain. Go slowly, and you can always return to simple breathing whenever you need to, and then come back to the practice when you're ready. Now I'd like you to consider all the people in the world who are experiencing the same feelings you are right now. On your natural exhale, from the center of your chest, send them your acknowledgement of their pain. Radiate out to them your care, your warmth. Offer them the space and peace that would ease their situation. On your natural inhale, imagine taking their difficulty into the center of your chest. It dissolves on contact with the boundless love of your heart and transforms into that which they need. Exhale your compassion, your care for their feelings, and wish them well-being, happiness, and ease. Feel your connectedness to all of these people around the world. Allow your heart to open to them. Now go back and forth between touching your pain and sending yourself kindness, and taking in their pain and sending out compassion and love. And you decide when to switch. And if at any point in the practice a different topic or emotion arises for you, that's totally fine. You can change topics and work with the new feelings. Now let's let go of the difficulty and let go of the Tonglen and return to the simple experience of being in your body. And this is great practice to be able to bring up something challenging and then to put it back down. So relax any tension that may have arisen in your body. And let the natural breathing feel like an internal massage. rest the mind in the body around the breathing. So any comments, thoughts, questions on the practice or your experience or anything?
So this week I'm taking off as well. And I haven't taken time like this to just be with myself. I'm staying in my house. So that's a little different than going to like a retreat place. But already it's only been a day, just one day. And I feel like this like stress and stuff just like oozing off. And it hasn't been easy, it has not been like this joyful, easy thing. It's been peaceful and it's been, at times, not all the time. But I'm really noticing like how good this is and just the time, it really does take a commitment and it takes time. So yesterday I did mainly mindfulness and some loving kindness towards myself. And the mind, woo-wee, oh my goodness, so active. Like I am pretty calm usually, and I usually talk like this, kind of slow. This sucker was like boom, 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 boom. So it was kind of crazy. And then to experience this today after doing that, so I really had some juicy stuff that was like right there present for me of things that kept coming up yesterday. And to feel like that heart space, just like, oh, I don't want to do this, and then just like, nope, just keep going, just keep allowing whatever to come up. And then it was so sneaky. All of a sudden it would be like, oh yeah, I'm totally out here thinking about if I'm gonna walk or if I'm gonna do this, or it was just amazing just to see all of that. And like what a simple practice in some ways, and yet no, right? To really be there with all of it. And I know this practice. Like I know this one, I've done this one, I've spent long periods of time doing this one. And it's amazing how I have not gone here, and that's kind of interesting too, that it's like, oh, okay, I wasn't quite ready to really feel it and to really be with it. And just that kindness and being so easy with ourselves while we do this is like, oh, so important. So yeah, so thank you guys. This is the only time I get to talk right now. So sorry if I went on and on.
Thank you. You know, and Angela has done a lot of retreats. So, in fact, that's kind of where we bonded, actually, I think. Um, so it's nice to hear, what an experienced retreat person, able to describe the experience of being in retreat. That's really helpful too. Thank you. Jennifer?
That was beautiful and quite an experience. And Angela, thank you so much for sharing also. I have a question about the self which we are naturally, the loving, the love, the openness, and then the training and the conditioning. To which self are we offering the compassion?
Hmm. I don't really think of there being more than one self. So there's sort of your nature, and then there's then there's habits. So, however, to me, I don't think of offering it. You can do it however it works for you. To me personally, I don't think of them as two sort of different beings and offering it to the. I mean, yeah, I suppose you could offer it to the conditioned self because your nature isn't bothered by this stuff. But I don't. That to me, that would feel confusing. I think. But if it works for you, do it. Like there isn't a right way to think about this stuff. Um, but I think of it as sort of one thing, if that's helpful. But really, however it works for you is fine. And that's true of so many of these practices that you should feel free to like play around with how to make them work for you. And, in the process of doing that for myself, sometimes I think I just misunderstand the actual instruction when I tweaked it my way. It was probably what they meant in the first place, so just feel free to do it your way.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah. What else, Holly? Did you have something?
I loved this meditation today. I started off in the other room and then so much construction noise all of a sudden. I was like, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to meditate today. Like, so I moved myself. And the thing is that I think that that's like part of my experience. Like, part of my pain is not having a perfect environment, right? To like be calm, or like just if this would stop or this would be better. And I love today like going through the pain of my own pain, and then the pain of somebody else, and kind of that almost like that the ball going back and forth. And I always think of feeling my own pain is like broadening my spectrum. Like if I feel the pain on this side, then I'll be able, like the moment you shut down the pain, you also shut down the joy and the compassion. And like if you keep on shutting down, like the spectrum gets so small that you have no sweet spot anymore. It's just like trying to thread the thread through the eye of the needle. It's so minute. So like by feeling my pain, I feel like that sweet spot of emotions gets so big, and that's where the emptiness is for me. It's not like empty, it's just all of a sudden I'm full of air and prana, and I have space to actually feel again. And so I really loved that back and forth. And I also loved that like my environment was so less than ideal in the beginning, and then still having a great experience in the end. But that spectrum, like feeling pain from somebody else, it actually, I never thought about it like actually allowing me to feel my own pain. And then once it moves through, that's like where that emptiness comes, or I even think, like I was saying, like fullness of air, like space to feel again. And so thanks for that movement through both.
That was gorgeous. So know that the word emptiness is sort of the word it's translating as shunyata, which is like zero-ness. But some people use, Roshi Joan Halifax and Kaz Tanahashi use boundlessness.
Mm.
And it's not empty like a void. Fullness
Yeah.
could be another translation instead of emptiness. It sort of includes everything, not nothing. It's just no thing. It's saying that things aren't quite things in the way we think of them. They're everything. So yes, emptiness doesn't mean nothing. It means everything.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. And I love that too, the back and forth, because I think acknowledging that other people around the world, so many, have the exact same problem we do, like that helps me feel normal for having that problem. And then if I can offer care to them, it helps me offer care to me. So I think it's a really sweet teaching in that way. Lindsay.
Yeah, to what kind of Holly was saying, we're jumping off from that is the feeling it on a spectrum, where I think it's easy when I'm not feeling spacious, or I'm feeling kind of, my mind will easily compartmentalize to saying, oh, that's anger and that's it. But like when in that space, I was like, oh my gosh, it's not one dimensional. It is anger and fear and sadness and heartbreak. And like, it felt like way more than the one thing that my mind wants to put it into a box, and then, yeah, going back and then feeling that for everybody, I think, especially for other people, it's easy to say that they're angry, but no, they're also feeling all of these things on a spectrum of heartache and fear and things like that, but really powerful.
Beautiful. Yeah. Yeah, there's so much like nuance and subtlety and layers to everything that we feel. It's amazing. And that's part of what emptiness is pointing to, is that when you give something a name, it sort of makes it seem smaller than it is. Names are helpful, right? So we can talk about it. But things aren't limited to the names we give them. That's a big part of the emptiness teaching, actually. Which again, we could do a whole year on that one. We will. Anything else from anyone?
That quote that you said like halfway through, I can't remember which point it was. I think it was before Sharon Salzberg.
Oh yeah, the Mark Nepo.
Yeah, would you send that one?
I will.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I love that one.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have two quotes for you at the end of each session. So first is from Charles Darwin. And I bring this up because people think that natural selection that he taught was like one way, but actually he was really into compassion. So he said that in however complex a manner sympathy, which is the word that he used for compassion, in however complex a manner sympathy may have originated, as it is one of high importance to all those animals which aid and defend one another, it will have been increased through natural selection. For those communities which included the greatest number of the most sympathetic members would flourish best and rear the greatest number of offspring. So I just feel like Darwin gets quoted as like, we're all supposed to like fight each other to survive or something, but actually, working together, even, in his system is how we flourish. And then the Dalai Lama, he says, compassion is not religious business. It's human business. He says it's not luxury. It's essential for human survival. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow, and I'll send out the Mark Nepo quote. Thank you, and the videos will go up shortly soon.